Hey everybody, we're your local election headquarters. We're doing a little post-debate wrap-up. We wanted to bring in a couple of our close friends who know a whole lot more about politics than we do. Dr. Dave Rausch from West Texas A&M and Aaron Faver from Amarillo College. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in as we, again, have worked through some technical difficulties tonight, trying to get everything on and everything ready to go. Aaron Faver, I want to start with you. We'll start with the Republicans. It got off to a quick start and never let up. The haymakers were going pretty early. I tweeted out that this was an intense one.
It really was. I thought that the level of temperament in the room was elevated. There was a lot of back and forth. If you wanted to call it spirited discussion, that might be pushing boundaries.
Yeah. Dr. Rausch?
Yeah, I had predicted early on that it would be a lot more heat than light. I'm not sure we learned a whole lot, anything new, because they talked like Republicans. That's, again, one of the problems with primaries is that primaries are focused largely on who's the better Republican or who's the better Democrat. And so that's all we really learned.
Okay, well, let's go there. So we, as these two candidates, we've had a chance to get to meet them because this has been an extended primary into the runoff. Who came out looking the best, Aaron? I want to ask you that in terms of from start to finish, your thoughts on who walked out with a win there.
You know, that's to me, it's an interesting question to ask. It's a difficult question, but it's incredibly important. It depends on what you're looking for. If you were a constituent looking for somebody that was going to come out and really be vocal and be on the attack, I think that you're going to look for, and that a candidate's going to appeal to you. To me, that candidate appeared to be Ronnie Jackson, being the aggressor, if you will, in the debate, if that's a term I'm allowed to use. Yeah. But certainly, I think he was trying to definitely put Weingartner on the defensive. On a lot of different things, including military service, some of the different things that have popped up in this election that are not new to the reputation of Ronnie Jackson, and that's saying nothing about his character. Respect deeply his military service, his dedication and devotion to this country. That's not under question whatsoever. But certainly, whenever we are trying to find somebody that's going to represent this District 13 the very best. These are questions that we have to ask of our candidates, and so that to me that's the answer to that question.
Dr. Rausch, was there anything that caught you by surprise? We follow the speeches, we follow what they're releasing, what their campaigners are releasing. Was there anything that caught you by surprise in this debate?
Not really. Everything's all of the statements were true to form. I'm still waiting. I did a little Google search. There's this little thing in the internet now called Google where you can look up people, and there is still some questions about when Admiral Jackson retired from the Navy. Did he retire? There's a difference between resigning and retiring in terms of, can he be called back to stand any type of disciplinary punishment for some of his activities? Because I remember reading, at least in 2018, he was under investigation by the Inspector General, which is probably about 10 or 15 Inspectors General since then. But there's some questions like that. So I'm not sure we learned a whole lot about that. I do remember that Mr. Ekstrom actually raised that one in the first round of the primary. So that's one surprise I haven't seen, and I'm not sure how ethical it is. Can different groups run other groups' commercials from previous elections? That would be kind of fascinating to take a look at in the next couple days.
Definitely.
Aaron, we may have to have a class at AC on this one. I would say Dr. Rausch, but I think you're taking the fall off. So
this semester, yeah.
We'll put you under the gun on that one. In terms of is there a point? I asked Aaron about who he thought won. Could there be a point? Maybe somebody thought that Ronnie Jackson may have been too aggressive. Or is that such a thing in a primary runoff where you're trying to grab every vote you can?
I don't think you can be too aggressive. It's better to be aggressive based on facts and details, and here's how my policies might differ slightly from his policies. Here's two good ideas I have that I'm going to try to do when I'm elected instead of 37 ideas. You're a brand new freshman in Congress. 37 is a little optimistic. 2 would be a good round number. But it's just that I think right now the people that were happiest with both candidates' performance were people that were happiest with both candidates before the debate. It's sort of those people. Can you have like the in between? Since they were pretty far to the right, there can't really be a whole lot in between.
Right.
But if you want to try to use some of these debate responses in the general election, I could see some Democrats already lining up. Ooh, we need to use that one. Oh no, we need to China's evil type of things, and how to use those things then in the general election. So are we going to see? Did we just see a whole evening's worth of Democratic commercials in the fall?
And do you guys both agree that the platforms are very similar? At the end of the day, once you shake out all the arguments about did you vote, did you not vote, your lobbyist record, all of those things, at the end of the day, platform's pretty much the same. Yes, that's what I'm asking you.
Yes, sir. That was addressed, I think, at the very beginning of the debates when we were having some technical difficulties. Both Dr. Rausch and I both agreed that this debate would be probably not about policy, but more about personality. And so,
I think if the Republicans nominate Mr. McCarthy to be the speaker, I can guarantee that Congressman Jackson or Congressman Weingarten are going to vote for McCarthy for Speaker of the House. I can't see either one of them. Oh no, I'm going to vote for the Democratic candidate, whoever that is, and it probably shouldn't be Pelosi. That type of thing. So, and at the end of the day, they're going to vote with the Republican. They'll probably end up siding with the Republicans to get committee seats and that type of thing.
And this is the most conservative district in the entire United States. Is that a fact?
Yeah.
If not one of the.
Yeah, it's number 1 or number 2. It depends on how you slice it.
Okay, so with that in mind, if we take a look at, I want to back up just a second. Congressman Thornberry, we talked about this, Aaron, before we kind of went on. This was an interesting primary because of really what Congressman Thornberry was able to accomplish and able to do, and his climb among the Republican ranks that made this such an interesting seat for so many people to go after. I can't remember. I mean, it seems like 2 years ago. I don't remember how many people were in the original primary. But let's talk about that, about Congressman Thornberry's just impact and what he did for the congressional district there.
tough act to follow. Just tough act to follow. It's like trying to go on after Aerosmith or something. The idea is that politics, the political culture has changed so much since Thornberry came into office in the 90s, and then of course we have 9/11 that shakes things up, and it kind of elevates the concept of national security. And so now you find ourselves now in 2020, we're balancing some of the different issues of national security and immigration, which have engines of conflict built into both of them. Same way with energy policy and environmental policy. And with regard to Thornberry, he's somebody that's been kind of laying low in the Republican or the organization. And I think that it's, to some degree, the leaders of the Republican Party want him to do that because he's not a controversial guy. He's from Clarendon. You know, he's a good kind of his background is we don't talk about some of this stuff out of shop. Yeah. And so what happened in that committee, we're not going to really discuss. And I think the media also respects that deeply about him. But he definitely made the office a coveted seat because he was able to rise from being, a freshman that really was from kind of a part of the United States that wasn't as well recognized, and is now sitting on top of the House ranking Republican for the House Armed Services Committee, former chairman.
And did good things for our area with Pantex and Bell. Yeah.
And it's very interesting because he definitely benefited from one interesting idea that I study a lot, which is term limits. He probably would never have become chair when the Republicans had the committees. It was called the Committee on National Security. Now it's the Armed Services Committee again. But he would not have been the chair had there not been term limits forcing, the in terms of seniority, you get on there, you're on for 3 terms, you're off. Yeah. So a couple of the folks that would have stayed on longer, Buck McKeon was the gentleman he replaced, would have been on there probably until death do us part. That with term limits, now he gets to become the chair.
Speaking of term limits, there was an interesting question that kind of got brought up about term limits where Ronnie Jackson said 10 years and I'm done. And we didn't really get an answer, I don't think, from Josh in terms of it. And he brought up a good point. If he's in there and he's working on a big piece of legislation, or he's a main person on an ag committee, why would he step down after 10 years if he has finally elevated himself to that position, which is exactly what Mac Thornberry did?
I think it's fascinating. 10 years is actually 2 years longer than you're supposed to say. You know, when you're for term limits, you're supposed to say 8 years. 8 years in the House and then 2 terms in the Senate. That's the going rate. So he must have not read that part of the script where he comes out and says 8 years. 10 years is kind of weird because that'd be the next redistricting, and I'm not sure the Texas legislature will want to lose an incumbent and now have to work on actually drawing a district, particularly since we may end up gaining another seat by 2030.
Yeah, and this is one of the committee system itself is built around the idea of seniority within the House of Representatives. I don't see, to Weingarner's credit, I don't see, I thought his answer on that was point on in terms of the way that the government actually functions with in the House of Representatives, the People's House. Thornberry was able to become an expert in his field, national security. He was able to represent the interests of ag, of the different infrastructural and Air Force bases and all the different things that make up District 13 being such a large district. And so with regard to that question in the debate, it was one that's probably going to receive mixed reviews, but people that are pro-term limits, it sounds good, but I respected the fact that Weingarner didn't take the easy win on that.
So having said all of that, Congressman Thornberry's seat is a well sought after seat. Did anybody improve their chances? Obviously, Josh Weingarner, if you looked at the voting the first time around, he had more votes. Do you think that changes, Dr. Rausch, next month?
Probably not. Of course, the first goal of Mr. Weingarner is to get all those people who voted for him the first time to vote for him again. Mm-hmm. If you can get every single one of those folks, the hard part will be getting those folks to vote, whether or not they're going to vote for him or against him. I think really in a runoff, I mean, we've seen it in the history. Take a look at, we used to call him Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst. He lost, he won a runoff. He won the primary, lost the runoff. Yeah. Running for Senate, he lost the runoff. Yeah. And so maybe what we need to do is press on our state legislature to maybe look at getting rid of the dual primary, getting rid of the runoff type of thing, and just go with who wins. Is there a cost-benefit analysis? Who wins having a runoff? It's going to cost the state more to run the election. Now we have to do all sorts of extra things with our various viruses floating around. So that might be the one question to ask is, do we really need the runoff?
I know a guy that can probably write a paper on that. So,
and I'll have it done in about an hour.
Okay, so let's go ahead and set that aside and move to the Democrats with Craig Sagan and Gus Trujillo. What stood out for you guys tonight?
Not a whole lot. That was one of those debates where it's like, I thought Mr. Sagan had dropped out, and then he dropped back in, and that doesn't look good when you're dropping out and dropping in. I mean, the reason for him dropping out was health reasons and things like that, and that's perfectly acceptable. Right. Now, when everybody's got concerns about health, I would have stayed out and then just let it. I'm sure that's one of the places where we need to have stronger parties. Had the party leader of this district come out and said, okay, Mr. Sagan, you've had your tries. You've run a number of times before. Let's let somebody else try. That would have been much more effective. Yeah,
and respectfully to the Democratic Party in our area as well, I don't think that they're as organized as the Republican organization in this district anyway.
Okay.
And that, of course, that varies in different parts of Texas. You go down into Central and the Urban Triangle in different areas, it's going to be different. But I don't see the type of organization within the Democratic Party that we have in the Republican Party. And that's not disparaging of anything other than the fact that demographics and the types of issues we deal with here in West Texas.
And that wasn't, Sagan was not only facing the out, I mean, there was a serious question posed tonight about some pretty serious allegations that he's facing that we've reported on extensively here, and you can find that at myiplanes.com. It was an I-team investigation we did, but you guys have looked into that. You've seen that. That was hard to come over. At the end of the day, didn't the substance, was it there? Was it not?
It's hard to tell. A debate like this, I mean, I would like to see it a little bit more of the, and that's the problem with politics is more a retail activity, I think, than a wholesale activity. And these debates are more wholesale. I'd like to see the candidates more in action when they're with smaller groups, socially distant, of course, smaller groups of people talking and things. And maybe that's what we're lacking in this campaign. All of a sudden, we're here at the runoff. How did we get here so fast? Well, it's because we've been sitting out for 3 months.
I was going to say, so fast, it seems like it's taken forever. I feel like we're in a bizarre time warp where we are in a Groundhog Day-like situation.
Yeah,
and
March
I guess
128th.
Yeah, so we can really, COVID-19 has played a major role in this runoff, in that we haven't been able to see them out and about. This hasn't been a thing.
Right.
Yes, sir. It's been very difficult. I can't imagine trying to run one of these campaigns right now. It'd be very difficult. I was thinking about that in April and in May. Kind of a nightmare type scenario if you're the campaign strategist or a campaign marketing, somebody that's looking deeply into these issues and trying to get your candidate and position them in the very best way possible when the whole ground beneath you is constantly tectonically shifting. And that was what that was like in March and in April and in early May. And so the issues of the campaign were constantly changing. And of course, now we're dealing with a lot of new issues that have come about in June as a result of what happened in late May.
And I was talking with my wife and then talking with my dad, who's been a candidate a number of times, and they shot down this idea, but getting like masks that have your candidate's name on them. I mean, my classic suggestion is always to get 20 people, buy them T-shirts, and have them walk around the mall. That'll get a lot of attention. Have them go to sporting events. Well, the mall was closed. There's no sporting events. You could have gone to the grocery store. But that does the mask with the name on does raise that question of, are you trying to piggyback on someone else's distress? What my dad explained it to me in 35 minutes. My dad's also a big talker. But I
can't imagine.
I don't know why.
I can't imagine.
It's hard to believe. But yeah, I thought that was one of my better ideas. Just get like a mask. I've seen on the web, though, that there are some for certain presidential candidates, and I haven't gotten any.
So let's move now. As we've talked about the Republicans. We've talked about the legacy of Mac Thornberry, what he did for the 13th congressional district. We've talked about the Democrats. Let's talk about now just the overall. We've got a few minutes here. The overall election that is coming up in November. You study these things. This is your passion. It's your life's work. What are we in for when you take COVID-19, everything we're going through, and what could be a crazy election season, or what will be a crazy election season? I don't think there's any doubt. We can remove that doubt now, right?
Oh, definitely. Well, I do think, and actually a couple of folks on Facebook have been addressing this. Let's say that Admiral Jackson actually wins. Do the Weingartner people then go vote for the Democrat for Congress? Well, probably not. They'll vote for the Republican. In many cases, I would anticipate a very low turnout, in part because people are afraid to go for health reasons, go vote. There are some people that are going to be doing the absentee ballot, which is fine. I mean, if you're of the proper age.
You meet the requirements.
Right, yeah, hit all that stuff. But it's just one of those, the Republican's going to win the district for the president and for Congress, so why bother voting? And that may actually give a little bit of hope to some of the Democrats, that they may actually, if we can just slip in, we just need one more vote than the Republicans get. Maybe we start handing out little pencils with candidates' names on so they can use them to press the buttons on the voting machines.
Right. It's a fascinating question.
So what are you looking forward to the most as you follow this as an educator and someone who studies this, who loves it? What are you looking forward to following in this election season?
I don't know what I'm looking forward to. It's really everything is so complicated, And I hate to fall back on that. I feel like I fall back on the idea of complication so much and complexity. But really, we're talking about such a multidimensional issue. Let's say that Trump wins re-election. What does that look like for the Democratic Party? Do they get more popular? Do they get more embrace, especially with some of the different social justice issues that are currently going on? If Trump loses the election, what does that do for people that are embracing Trumpian policies, both in terms of his foreign policy and his domestic policy? It's a very difficult question to bring up. I'm not really sure I'm looking forward to the time between August and November, after the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention. But to answer that question, I think that I would have to say that I'm always looking forward to hearing what people, the United States of American citizens and the citizens of Texas, have to say about the way their country is being run, and democracy as a purist idea, but also the republic itself. Can it continue to withstand some of the issues that are being thrown at it today?
Well, chances are we're going to bring you back in, especially you guys are going to. Dr. Rausch is going to have some extra time on his hands. You actually were saying you're going to take a little time off, but you're going to actually be helping out during the election, right?
Well, I volunteered to work at one of the, they always need people to help out at the polling places, election judges, helping people, making sure everyone's logged in correctly and so forth. So I volunteered for that, figuring that there might be some of the more senior folks that do that may not want to do that because of health reasons and things. And I've always tried to encourage my students now, since I teach a lot of online classes, my students are spread out over the world, so different states have different regulations. Some cases you have to be elected to that office, like my parents were elected. So I volunteered. I haven't actually been officially appointed or anointed, I guess would be the appropriate term or whatever, but I did ask to do that.
Well, good luck with that.
Oh, thanks.
With any luck at all, we're going to try to have you guys back as we follow this. Early voting begins very quickly. We're set for June 29th. The election is July 14th for this runoff to see who goes to the general election ballot on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. And then we are in for quite a haul in November as we watch not only just this main local race, but the national top topography kind of start to begin to shift, and we're going to have you guys in to walk us through that. We appreciate you for being here. Thank you for working with us through all the complications, all the technical issues. We do appreciate it, but we're going to wrap things up from your local election headquarters. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the news at 10. Good night.